Hello, everyone. Welcome to the session. We're really glad to have all of you here. We're doing this after a while. Obviously, the world has changed in the last 6 to 7 months, but we have, of course, also all have to move with the times, and we've made sure that we've adapted our live sessions, which we were doing for, we did it all through, I think we started last year, and we continued through the start of the year until COVID hit, and we've been continuously providing online content, and we thought it's also time to start again with our Etisalat workshops. And I'm just going to share my screen again. So again, you would have seen the video at the start. This is just a little bit about the assembly. The assembly is a smart lab and makerspace that's based out of In5 since 2014. We're not at In5 at the moment, at least I'm not. We are presenting this from outside remotely, but In5 is where we regularly host sessions and we present workshops, and we have a lot of people showing up there in person. Obviously, it's not recommended right now, so we have taken the step to move all our workshops online. All told, we've done about 250 free workshops, most of them in person, with the exception of the last few months when we have been doing it online. We have hack workshops, so we have 3 different streams there. The hack workshops, which relate to embedded systems, IoT, and hardware. Now, normally the workshop we would do where we're doing today, and the topic would come under hack because we try to involve some hardware, but obviously that is not possible with the situation right now. So we're going to simulate hardware, but we're going to focus more on the software part of it. Of course, embedded systems also require software. It's not just about hardware there. We do have purely software sessions which work with APIs, frameworks, and we could probably say today's workshop will come, say, about 80%, 90% under that as well, because we will be showing you how to work with the platform. Assembly data science is our most recent addition, and we do that. We concentrate on a more robust, like something more targeted towards AI and machine learning enthusiasts. Our other sessions usually can be picked up from scratch, but with the data science, we advise you have some background. Our audience ranges from students, professionals, to entrepreneurs, to anyone who's interested in technology. So nobody is excluded. If anyone likes technology and is keen to get adept at it, which everyone must do these days, then we welcome them. We focus on practical applications along with smart technology. So we try to build something every time. We don't just go through like training 101 sessions. We want to show you how to build with your hands, whether it's software or hardware. Our forum is where you can see all the follow-ups as well as future events. So do also remember to check us out on social media. Sorry, I'm just skipping ahead a bit. Do check us out on social media. We're active there as Make Smart Things, and you can find out all the different. Incidentally, we're also streaming this live on YouTube, and that is also going to our website. So in case you miss something, you can always catch up with it later, and in case you want to share it as well afterwards. Of course, the best part is for the interactive. Now, before we get started, we have a special guest today, and I'm just going to stop sharing my screen for 2 minutes to see if I can get him in there. Okay, I'm going to just add Jose Luis Lopez Villen. Hi, Jose.
Hi, Nihil. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you doing? I believe you're not in the country.
Oh, I'm not in the country, but I'm very happy to be part of this event. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So let me just quickly introduce Jose to you. Jose is the Director of Open Innovation with Etisalat Digital. I wanted to just specify. And of course, he works with as we mentioned, this is part of the Future Now program, and you've been hearing about that, and we've definitely done that. So Jose, I just wanted to bring you on and see if maybe you might do a quick introduction to Future Now, to the program, because we get a lot of questions about that. I mean, it is still okay. It's been around now for a bit, but people are still finding out, and it's a massive program, which we've seen, and IoT is one of the forefronts of that. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Jose.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Nihil. So first of all, thank you, Nihil. Thank you, the Assembly, for helping us and supporting organizing this event. I mean, this year has been a bit complicated, but we are very happy and very excited to come back to do these events with your collaboration, of course. So on behalf of Etisalat, thank you very much. Really appreciate having you there. So I will not take a lot of time. I just wanted to share with you a little bit of information about what Future Now is about. Future Now, as Nihil has explained before, is the Open Innovation Program of Etisalat. We work with some of the most innovative companies and acceleration programs in the UAE, can complement the offers and products from Etisalat Digital. So in that case, one of the key pillars, and that's why these events are so important, these workshops are so important, one of the key pillars for Etisalat Digital is IoT. IoT, as you know, Internet of Things has several ways to apply it, also combined with other emerging technologies like artificial intelligence or blockchain, where we are already elaborating some products in collaboration also with the startups. But today we wanted to create a specific tool and a specific solution related to fleet management. Some of our clients are using these solutions, and we have many of the most important, or most of the important logistic groups that are using this technology to track their assets, to track what is the best routes to follow when it comes to logistics, how to optimize their resources, etc. So this is a solution. What you are going to be working on today is something that has a very clear commercial impact. That is something that there are many companies out there that are offering this kind of solutions, and that is very, very interesting for Etisalat Digital. So once again, thank you very much. Thank you very much, partners, to the Assembly, PTC, who is providing the IoT IoT platform. And well, and that's all. Thank you very much again. And Nikhil, back to you.
Thank you, Jose. Good to see you again. And yes, thank you for that explanation. We will keep fielding questions also. Obviously, that's one thing I just wanted to explain to everyone. We are operating in a Zoom webinar format. So if you're not used to it, Zoom webinar also has Q&A. Zoom webinar is a bit more sophisticated than the normal Zoom meetings, and you can send us, attendees can't come on the screen, but they can follow along, but they can also interact through other means like sending us Q&A and chat. And our team is there to also help out, like answer your questions. Apart from that, if anyone has questions regarding future now, please do send it across and we'll make sure we put you in touch with the thing. Thank you, Jose. Enjoy your trip and we will catch you soon. Great, guys. Just give me 1 second. I'm just going to make sure that all the settings are there, so I think everyone can see. So before I get started, right. Okay, so I'm going to just go back to my presentation. We have a lot of ground to cover. Like I said, please do keep posting your Q&A. This webinar, there will be a few different things. Now, before we do anything, I wanted to actually share something with you. Let me see if that works out. Okay, I'm just going to share my screen again. Now, we're going to just take one step before we actually get started, and we're just going to take a peek ahead. And I'm just going to show you something. And this is a site I want you guys all to go to. Can everyone see my screen? I think you should be able to see my screen now. Okay, yes. I'm going to keep checking in between to see the chat as well as the others. So, I might not be able to reply instantly, but I will keep coming back to that. Okay, now this is a site, this is a bit of a look ahead. Don't worry if you don't understand anything. Today, like we mentioned, we are going to use the ThingWorx platform. Now, in the past, when we have done this using different systems, you have usually come over to the assembly and we've had a server instance, a licensed server instance that we've used, and we've been able to connect all of you to that. Now, of course, it's a little bit different here because, due to security issues, we can't necessarily just expose that, the server that we have over there. But what we're going to do is we're going to work with a new offering that PTC has provided. PTC is the company behind ThingWorx. So I want all of you to go to developer.thingworx.com, and this will be useful even otherwise. So, okay, so when you go to developer.thingworx.com, you will be seeing this view. Okay, you can create an account. It's really simple. Just click get started or sign up there. The reason I'm saying this before is because once we go on to that, you can sign up here. And once you've signed up and you've just provided your information to them directly, we're not processing this. You can just do this. You can get access to their free trials. Now, the free trials will help you host your own server, which has just been made available by PTC. That's a very recent thing. It's called PTC Cloud. So PTC Cloud gives you a hosted server instance, so you don't have to install anything. They will give you a server instance that will be on there. So this is basically how you do that. I am going to also now go back to my other screen share, which I was showing you earlier, and show you what it looks like once you have created that. Okay, so once you are here, you are back on the evaluation server. Now, I've created an evaluation server. You get a free 30-day trial from PTC, and all I have to do to access ThingWorx is to start my server and then open up another web browser, and everyone can do this for 30 days for free. You can download the full version of ThingWorx, but that's a more involved process. Wouldn't recommend that at this point, but we still have time. We are going to go through a few slides. I just wanted to show you this so that everyone can gear up with that. So the ideal suggestion would be that you would be able to create your evaluation server. It will not take long, and then you'll be able to start it up and access it. And then you can have you can be administrator of the server and you can access pretty much everything on that. As a second backup, what we have done also is, like, for my server, I've created about 17, or we have a limit, obviously. We've created about 15 accounts. So we can accommodate about 15 people if you don't want to, actually, like, install this, sign up for your evaluation server. Just go on there and just raise your hand at this point. So you'll have the raise hand feature over there. Just raise your hand. And my colleague Amar will give you a username and password, which we'll use later once we actually need to. Okay, so remember, I only have 15 users, so I can only accommodate 15. So if it goes beyond 15, the balance will have to create their own server. Again, there are also benefits to creating your own server, so don't worry about that. Now, remember, this is a trial server, so there will be, we are going live on a trial account. So definitely there will be something. So once you get the server, I'll just show you what happens. My evaluation server comes here. If this is actually this, from home, if I go there, once I'm logged in, I just go to the account and it goes to either your trial. You can go to your trial. So I've already got this because I've already done it, but you can go to free trials. And free trials, you need to access PTC Cloud and say access free 30-day hosted trial. Okay, so that will give you your own trial. If you want to create that, obviously you're not installing anything. So, and that is there. But 15 of you, I see people raising their hands. Okay, so my colleague Amar Ali will be sending you a message with the username and password. Just note down the username and password. I will be switching on my server. Right now, my server isn't active. In fact, I'm just going to start it because it does go off after a while also. So let's go back to that. So let's go to my hosted trial info. If you have created your own server and you've created all the details, all you have to do is come to this one and say start server. Okay, now this takes a little bit of time. You can see there. So please do bear with us. Amar is going to give you all the time. The reason I wanted to get into this for us, and we'll come back to the PTC site and the explanation later, is to show you, is just to do that. So once my server is running, right, I basically just have to log into this link. It will take a second. At the moment, it will still probably say error connecting and refused. But we don't really need that right now. So that's fine. If you do get this error connection refused, don't worry about it. It takes some time. So for those of you who do have the username and password, just hold on to it for now. We're going to come back to it. We've got a lot of other stuff to talk about. I'm just doing this in advance just to show you. So I've saved my administrator and password. So I'm just going to operate it, but you have to just copy and paste it from the previous thing. Okay. So this is what ThingWorx looks like online. I am going to come back to this, but this was just to show you the thing. Okay, I'm going to stop share right now. And let's come back to, I'm going to start sharing my presentation again. Right. So I'm just, I think everyone can see me. So that is good. Let's carry on with this. Okay, so just a bit more, I mean, about the Internet of Things. Now, like I said, we are doing this workshop after a long time, so, and I know many of you would have attended our first few sessions, and you would probably already have seen some of this, but I'm going to do a quick recap for those who are coming here for the first time. Obviously, the first session, that's why we split this into two, because we wanted to do one where we can reorient people who have been using, and then in the second session that we do next week, we can go really fast with the session. But we're going to focus a lot on the different topics that we have, on the different theoretical parts, because it's important to understand. I mean, the Internet of Things and working with the Internet of Things is not just a simple technical exercise. It is a whole process, and it's important that you have a correct frame of mind for that process. Okay, so without further ado, let's start with that. Let's start right at the top. What is the Internet of Things? And of course, everyone has heard of it. So I'd be very surprised if you came for this workshop without knowing anything about the Internet of Things. But the Internet of Things is basically the network of physical objects that connect directly over the internet, right? So we're talking about all sorts of smart machines. They could be different things. It could be like, computers, but it could also be like smart, smart devices that are in the corner. It's the cloud as well. So there's all of them connected in a network, and, where, you're bypassing the human internet, and you're just going straight to, so that the things can communicate with each other. It can still communicate with humans, but the primary aspect is that they're able to communicate with each other. The big differentiator here for me is that it's a network of physical objects that can exchange data for value. Now, most of the time when we say value, we talk about business value, but in different circumstances, there are different, obviously, items of value, but anything that can take data and convert it into value of some sort, whether it's more efficiency, more productivity, better readings, that is part of the Internet of Things. Now you're going to hear one term, the physical objects that connect. We are, this is a very PTC oriented thing, a very ThingWorx oriented term, are smart connected products. So you guys, I'm going to share a link just now in, excuse me, I'm just going to share a link quickly in over there. So if I do say that, I will keep, my method of communicating with you guys will be over the chat, because obviously you can't. So I'm going to share a few links with you about smart connected products. So you can see the link there, but I'm just going to share it with you. So feel free to go to this link. I'm sending it to all panelists and attendees. So that is from the Harvard Business Review, and it's co-written by one of the the founders of PTC and ThingWorx, and it explains what smart connected products are. And you can see in the diagram there that the smart connected products usually have three layers. So one is, of course, the product itself. In this case, it could be a Fitbit, it could be a smartwatch, it could be a Raspberry Pi that you have programmed to do something, maybe attached to a camera like we've done in past sessions. There is a connectivity layer where it connects. These products are able to connect and communicate with the cloud, maybe syncing data with a digital representation, a digital twin in the cloud. And finally, there are the apps with which you as the user, without even being in the same zone as the poor products or in the same country, can get the data all from the cloud. So the cloud is the key component there. Now, there are 4 capabilities. And if you see that article, you'll see more about that are important. You want smart connected products that can be, that can monitor. So you want to be able to monitor. So for example, if there's, a temperature sensor that you've put in Jebel Ali, and you're sitting in maybe in another part of Dubai, that temperature sensor, you want to be able to monitor the readings. So with the temperature as it changes over time as well. You want to be able to control also. So it's not just passive one-way information coming. You want to be able to control. So supposing there's a robotic arm that you have, again, in a remote location, you want to be able to move it around. Okay, that's a good thing. Once you're able to monitor and control, you can also optimize. So you can optimize when you know what kind of readings are coming through, and how you can control. You can improve your processes so that you optimize. Once you've done the optimization state, the final and the ultimate goal is to automate things. So you want things to operate without any interference from humans. Sorry, I can see some more chats coming in. Let me just have a quick look. Okay, Andre, hang on. We are going to show you where to use the username and password. We will come back to that. It is going to be on the online server. So you don't have to install anything at the moment. I will give you the link in a bit. Okay, so moving back, I'm just going to go back to this. ThingWorx is also prescribed, like, I mean, okay, ThingWorx is the platform we're using. Okay, there are many IoT platforms, and ThingWorx is, again, it's like, you know, with a big focus on industrial IoT. ThingWorx is a very popular platform. And the reason we are using it is, of course, are linked through Etisalat, and Etisalat has a partnership with PTC, and the basis of that, of a lot of that, is ThingWorx, and a lot of the in-house solutions that Etisalat develops, as Jose was talking about, including for fleet management, are built on top of the ThingWorx platform. Now, there are several benefits of the ThingWorx platform that you're going to see later on. The most important, of course, are how fast to market it is and the simplicity of the thing. So you can very quickly develop applications. You can very quickly connect devices and make a whole thing that you can easily build up and bring it to market in no time and you can deploy very quickly as well. It's very simple to use. You're going to see that firsthand. There's not a huge training curve. There is some training, of course, that you need, and we definitely recommend that, but it's not on there. It's very scalable. So you can start with a small proof of concept, and you can easily wrap, using its templates and things, you can easily make it a big enterprise-wide thing. The analytics are all built in, so you can find out from the data, you can crunch data in different ways, and you can figure it out. There's a lot of inbuilt stuff in ThingWorx that will just make your life easier. One very key point, and this is useful even to from the point of view of Etisalat, the multi-tenancy model, which means that you can organize with one ThingWorx server. If scaled up enough, you can organize different projects and different companies as organizations in such a way that I could maybe deploy an IoT project for company X. And on the same server, I could deploy for company Y. And company Y would never see company X's data, would never see company X's products or at all or anything. Nothing will be exposed at all. You can strictly lock down each and every bit on a granular level. So it's very useful. So, even if you get the license here, you can, if you do that. We're not going to go into organizations and permissions now in this session, but we'll see that later on. Data encryption, of course, one of the biggest concerns is security. So a lot of the data goes through encryption, and you can definitely define sensitive data for it to be. And it's a very secure system as well. Now, I want you to look at the diagram. Now, this is the process we're going to follow today. This is the prescribed ThingWorx development process, right? And it all starts with experience. Experience is how where you start thinking of the big picture and you design your IoT solution. You look at everything. In the case of a fleet management system, we're going to look at all the different things that we need to bring together. We're going to look at what kind of data we need. We're going to look at what kind of interface we want to build, what kind of information we want to give, what we want to provide to different users. There are going to be different end users. And so this is just basically planning and designing. Once you've planned and designed, then you move on to the model phase, where you actually go into the ThingWorx platform and you start building representations of your real world objects in ThingWorx. So they become like digital representations of that. Once you've done that, there are three processes. They're all on the same level because you can mix them up. Of course, you want to do analysis, where you want to analyze the data that's coming in. Of course, you also want to connect edge devices. So when I say edge devices, these are the smart devices that I was talking about, the ones that are on the edge. So on the edge in IoT terms just means things that are in remote locations and are normally not accessible, but through the internet you can access. So you have to see how to connect those devices. In past sessions, we've used Raspberry Pi as the edge device, and we've connected several devices on there. Build is where it is the most fun part for me, and maybe that's from my software development background, but build is when you actually build your web pages and you're able to deploy things. And that is the biggest value add for me in ThingWorx, and you're going to see that a bit later on. Okay, I'm just going over all this. Many of you might have seen it before, but just a few slides because I do want to make sure that everyone is up to speed. So please do bear with us. We will quickly be moving on after this. So this is the basic ThingWorx architecture that you can see here. So we've already explained the ThingWorx platform is on the cloud, right? So it could be on the cloud, or it could be a server. It could be a server somewhere. Like when you came to In5 for the workshops previously, it was running on a machine in In5, and that server was connected to by different people. So there's a database. You can use PostgreSQL, you can use MySQL, you can use a whole bunch of things. That's at the back end, and you usually don't have to worry about that. The admins take care of that. The application or mashup that you create, that you deploy, will be accessed over the web from the cloud platform. Now, the image on the left represents the edge. So, and you can see the protocols that separate the edge. It could be TCP/IP, it could be MQTT, it could be ThingWorx own, always on connection, which is a WebSockets based two-way connection. But there is something that bridges that gap. So that connectivity, it can come through a gateway. You can set up a gateway device on the edge, which communicates then with all your different individual devices, or you could directly connect the device through the protocols. Obviously in a larger situation, and even in fleet management, you see there are devices that act as gateways that would be connecting to other smaller devices that are on the platform. And these gateways can pierce maybe even firewalls and all if you have given them the proper access. So it's a very powerful structure, and you'll definitely see more of that. Okay, so now we're going to get into fleet management in particular. And in this, we're going to keep going back and forth a bit from the session, but I want to actually share everything with you on this first. So just 1 second, let me just make sure that everything is coming on there, right? Okay. So fleet management, let's get right into the nitty gritty of it. Most of you, and okay, everyone's already done the showing of hands. How many of you have worked with the ThingWorx platform? Just raise hands if you have worked with the ThingWorx platform. Okay. Okay, so that's good. Like, I'm not necessarily repeating, because there are a lot of you who are definitely, newcomers to this. So there is going to be a lot of material over here that you will show that. Okay, that's not a problem. We are going to go slow in this session. We're going to go through the details. We don't want anyone left behind. We'll speed up in the second session next week, where we'll cover a lot of ground fast. But by that time, I think you will have enough experience. And definitely, like I said, if you activate the ThingWorx server, you can definitely work on this all week and beyond. So by the way, the ThingWorx server, the cloud server, is 30 days. But if you actually follow the download and install it on your machine, if you've got enough your hardware requirements for that, you can run the server. It's a free 3-month trial, so that's very long if you wanted to actually see that. Okay, so getting into fleet management, you can see in that image also, you can see an example of the dashboard. But let's have a look at what it is. Okay, now fleet management, in this case, we're talking about IoT fleet management, but fleet management is nothing new. It was there before there was an Internet of Things. Fleet management was there before there were computers. A fleet refers to any of your transport operations. So it could be a fleet of cars, it could be a fleet of ships, it could be a fleet of planes. And even before computers, there was always somebody there who used to manage the operations. So that could be somebody who gets, who requisitions new things, who might be contacting mechanics if there are problems on that, who checks how your fuel is being consumed, who checks how the drivers are, how the engines are, diagnoses, different things. So there are lots of different things. The internet has made it easy, and IoT in particular has made it easy. And we did a session before where we did location tracking, and location tracking, no surprise, is going to be the core of this session as well. Location tracking is a big thing. You have so many different, like obviously the most common is GPS, and GPS devices are really easy to get and fit in and retrofit into that thing. So location tracking is the big thing there, but just getting the location is not enough, right? Like, I mean, you want to get the location and you want to be able to analyze it. You want to look at the data. With machine learning also now, of course, you can look at analysis and directly, see how you can optimize routes also, right? So getting from point A to point B is not the easiest, is not just a matter of just taking any route. You want to be planned. And people have done studies where they've seen that fleet management systems, by route optimization, will improve your efficiency, of course, and reduce costs by a great amount. You can service more deliveries, you can service more locations if you obviously know that. Then apart from that, there's a lot of data, real-time data on traffic as well, right? So traffic can also be brought into it, and then you can definitely go into incorporate that into your route. So you can know in real time where the hotspots are, which areas to avoid. You don't just have to depend on stale data itself. Geofencing is something, we're not going to cover this in the first session, but I'll explain to you what geofencing is. Geofencing is the setting of virtual boundaries. So you want to, on a map, you want to set a certain area that you say, okay, if your drivers go outside of this area, do something. It could range from sending out alerts, something, to as much as drastic steps as in like reporting it and even stopping if possible. Remember, you can also control. There are solutions in fleet management, like I've seen with trucks, where you could even remotely switch off trucks if they have broken a geofencing barrier. So geofencing is just sending a barrier, and again, it all ties to location. So 1, 2, 3 are very important. Remote vehicle diagnostics is the other important part from my point, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. There is a lot of data that you can get. Your car is already a smart device, and even the car that isn't fit for the thing, it's a very small step to actually retrofit it to become a smart car that is communicating over the internet. So you can get a lot of information. Obviously, the most important are speed, mileage. You want to get the fuel management. Fuel is a big important thing there also. And of course, you want to know how your engine is functioning, how your car is. And there's a lot of data that's already being primed up that I will be discussing that a bit more. Driver management is important. You want to see how your drivers, who you're entrusting your cars to, are using the cars. Are they braking hard? Are they suddenly speeding? Are they breaking speed limits? Are they, it's not a question of, obviously there's not Big Brother, but you want to be sure that your cars are not getting damaged in the process. And again, accident management is another thing, but you could add so many of these. And that's why I put the word cloud up, because there's so many different, it is an umbrella term that you can definitely get in with that. The benefits, there are lots of benefits I can say. I've just tried to put in a few, some of the things that you want to say. I would say, instead of this whole slide, what you need to think about, the benefits come into 3 categories more. First is your cost. By implementing fleet management, you will reduce your costs. You'll definitely improve your productivity. And of course, you can ensure that company policy is adhered. Not just company policy, you can make sure that your drivers and everyone is adhering to standards policy. So it could be things to do with emissions. It could be things to do with regulations that have been put by the government. So you can make sure that people are following it without actually having to check it yourself. So you can see a few of the different things. It provides transparency, and that's very important. And apart from that, like they always say with analytics isn't just looking back. You want to also have predictive analytics. You want to say future patterns. This is how I'm going to do that. There are lots of different things. So quick note, like I said, your fleet could include, most people will think of cars, buses, trucks, boats, ships, planes, and helicopters. These are the typical things you think of vehicles, but it doesn't end there. It could also include shipping containers. It could also include industrial equipment, whether it's moved or not, things like generators, your tractors. All of these could be under a fleet, and it could also include robots. In fact, I saw a case study online, which was a fleet management situation exclusively for robots. For a warehouse, so that you could manage your fleet of robots. You could check a lot of different things. Anyhow, that's enough of talking about it. Let's have a look at some examples. I'm going to actually share this video first. This is going to be a couple of minutes, so have a look.
In this demonstration, we'll look at an IoT application that was built using ThingWorx for an equipment rental company and designed for multiple roles across the organization, including service managers, who can monitor real-time information coming from connected equipment, receive automatic notifications based on operating conditions, review automatically generated service tickets, properly plan the service, and dispatch field technicians. Field technicians that use the application to review service tickets and determine the best course of action based on connected data. Branch managers, who can easily view statistics on fleets of equipment and properly plan for future rentals. And customers, who can view a personalized screen about their rental equipment, including identifying and returning underutilized equipment. Service managers are primarily concerned with ensuring uptime of assets, improving their first-time fix rate when issues do arise, and cutting service costs. Using ThingWorx, service managers can easily view, search, and filter to find all equipment that needs to be repaired. In the Asset Details view, associated service tickets are displayed. These tickets were automatically generated based on equipment operating conditions and are logged in the rental company's maintenance system. In the Telematics view, the most recent fault code is displayed. Selecting the fault code, the service manager can view the estimated fix time for the repair associated with the fault, as well as any required tools. In the case where fault codes are generated due to equipment misuse, the service manager can reach out directly to the customer to correct usage and avoid dispatching a technician. Connected data from the equipment is also gathered and displayed, enabling the service manager to see exactly how assets were behaving before any faults and service tickets were generated. All planned maintenance on the equipment can also be viewed. These maintenance tickets were created based on actual equipment usage instead of static scheduled maintenance, saving the rental company on unnecessary service. The automation of service and maintenance tickets was created using ThingWorx Flow, an interactive process automation builder that can easily integrate with various third-party system connectors. Technicians who work for the rental company are dispatched to perform routine maintenance or service. To perform optimally, technicians need to locate equipment and access repair and ticket information while on the go. Without location tracking, a service technician may show up to a site only to find out the piece of equipment is now hours away. Using a mobile view created in ThingWorx, technicians can easily track the location of all the assets they need to service based on its real-time coordinates. If the asset is in the wrong location or requires service by another technician, they can return to the map and find nearby assets that need to be serviced and access any connected data as well as repair instructions. Branch managers are focused on facilitating customer needs and planning for future rentals. Monitoring actual usage of customer assets helps create more accurate billing and contracts, and plan for future rentals using connected inventory management. Using equipment search, branch managers can effortlessly search across their entire fleet of equipment for assets and filter based on their assigned regions. This view also allows managers to easily ensure rented equipment is in the correct location. Utilizing multi-criteria search, the branch manager can easily find any equipment set to be returned and quickly find available equipment for future renters. Also, the branch manager can quickly arrange different dashboards to see additional, insightful information on each customer. Rental customers want to know how their equipment is being used, view planned downtime and maintenance to make operational adjustments, and plan any future rentals. To facilitate these customer needs, role-based screens were created using ThingWorx, giving customers access to this important information. When customers log into their dashboard, utilization reports help to identify any unnecessary equipment costs. And views of scheduled maintenance enable the rental customer to properly plan for downtime. These dashboards can also be organized and customized with additional gadgets to see different views of their information. Customers can also see how assets are used on job sites by searching and viewing location information, allowing them to quickly look at exactly where a piece of equipment was used on each site, by month, week, or even a specific hour. As seen in this demonstration, ThingWorx empowers companies to build custom service solutions that drive efficiency for multiple roles in an organization by connecting products, people, and systems.
Okay, actually, before let me just show you some more demos that were made available to us by the ThingWorx team. We were actually fortunate enough, like the ThingWorx team did help us out with. So this is their demo page that they provided us with. So including the presentation that you saw earlier, this is a few more examples of some things that we've definitely seen earlier. Okay, Acme Food is a good example of one. Let me open up one more. So this is a live ThingWorx server that's working there. You can see at the start, it's demo.thingworx/ThingWorx. So ThingWorx, this is a live thing. It's not just a simulation. These are a couple of examples. Not all of it you'd say per se is fleet tracking. Obviously, the dashboard, we're talking about orders and things. The cold chain is probably part of that. Deliveries, You can see a few different things there. So you've got the information of what's the route taken there, what are the different things, who are the drivers. You can contact the driver directly from here. It provides you the message. It's not difficult to build something like this. So these are a few ThingWorx based fleet management ones. I think the other one's a better example. Yeah, so that's got a fleet manager. So this is a massive view there. So you can see all the different trucks and you can see different icons. You can get like a bunch of things. So you can see the ratings from there. Like you've got a few different things. You can see how long, how much of incorrect shifting was done, harsh braking. So you're getting stats on a global view and it's being fed by real-time information. So this is a very good example. And you can either select from your list here, or you can select directly on there and see. So you can also, with ThingWorx, you can make these kind of like tooltips, which give you details on there, and it's quite easy to do. I think there's one more example. Let me try to find that. Oh yeah, fleet tracking itself. Yeah, this is a good example, which is a core fleet tracking system. So here you go. So it's a very simple thing. You've got a map. You've got all sorts of these different things. When you click on the map, you can see the different selection vehicles are there. So you can see the customer address. So this is a rent-a-car. So it's just going to show you a few different things. There are different icons, and you can see the driving score on a gauge. You can see a few different alerts. You can send a message to the driver directly from your interface itself, or you can call, email, or SMS. There are call, email, and SMS plugins available for ThingWorx. So it's one of many things. You can set filters so that if you only want to see a few things, say the battery remaining capacity is equal to maybe 23, and then that would filter down. Okay, maybe I've not got the right thing there. You can set miles radius. You can say I only want to see in a 5-mile radius, apply a filter, and then it just zooms in. For those of you who haven't noticed, this is obviously Las Vegas and the surrounding area near the airport McCarran. So you can see a few things. You can also create different tab pages. So you can create detailed views where you can see details of particular. So this is a particular route that was taken. So you can see where it started, where it ended up. You've got more tags there. So you can see a few warnings. John Sims was it was heartbreaking, high RPM. And there's an event score where they have like also shown in a chart that you can do that. There are also different things, like there's a rental agreement, which is actually, this is a type in ThingWorx called a blog, or a wiki. So you can create wikis within your page that can do that. The notes would also, I think, be like a wiki page. Unfortunately, these are on a password, so I can't share the details. You can't access that, but you can see the videos. So you can see maps. These are the things of the throttle position, speed, engine load. So you can map everything. So this is a good example. And of course, you also have like an administrative view which would give you a more top-down thing, and you could add information there directly. So working with this. So this was just a quick thing. I just wanted to show you the different examples. So I'm just going to close this and go back to the presentation. Let me head back. Let's go back to the PowerPoint slide.
All from one intuitive.
Okay, we finished with that. Now, just before we move on to that, I just want to talk a little bit about the hardware as well, right? I mean, and we're not going to come back to hardware later on. This is pretty much the only point, but it would be important to speak about, different types of hardware that are used also. The one word that you're going to hear a lot is OBD2 when you talk about hardware. Now, if you look at the image, that is what the OBD port looks like. It's a 16-pin port that is there on all cars. You could probably go there. You could just look below the driver dash. It's right there, or in a truck, it'll be in a different place. But you can get all this from, you can find the OBD port. Now, what would happen is if you went to most of the time the OBD port is not connected to anything, not out of the box. But if you went to a mechanic and he wanted to find out what's wrong with your engine, what's happening, and do all sorts of diagnosis, he would probably plug that in and then connect to a device that would show you, like, maybe on your mobile phone, there could be a wireless. So that would actually be the device. So most of the devices that are made for, like for IoT and fleet management would be this OBD type, where you would just plug in directly and it would relay, and you'd probably add on the GPS there as well. So these are retrofitted devices. You might have custom devices that can take care of their own connection. Things like I said, Raspberry Pis. There are lots of devices that connect to the OBD. I do actually have a good session. I'm just going to share that, in fact, on, let me just share a few links with you on chat. Okay, so have a look at the first link, and I've actually got that open, and that is loads of devices connect to it. And if you see some of the things, okay, I'm gonna have to share my screen again, the other screen. Let me share. Oh yeah, I've already got it open. This is a great little post on connected car devices on PostScripts, and they talk about OBD2 and all that. So a little bit about the history of OBD. OBD stands obviously for onboard diagnostics. It was created in the 90s, and the reason for that was at that point there was a big push for emissions controls. So it was created just to manage emissions controls, and it became a requirement. But then pretty soon people built onto it. They built so many devices on there. There are OBD scanners that connect directly and give you all sorts of things. But the tricky part, of course, is you can also read directly. There are definitely like ways to do that, like even for the DIY enthusiasts, you can get a lot of information. But at the same time, actually getting the data, there are tons of different things. So have a look at this in detail. Like you can see there are some of the DIY and open source Freematics vehicle data logger, and it gets you a lot of information about that. Okay, let me go back to the presentation. Oh, sorry, wrong one. So yeah, so have a look. There are companies like Zergo and Calamp that build it on a large scale. But I had also mentioned earlier, there are also gateway devices. So Option CloudGate, you can see that in the picture, that does that. Option CloudGate is a very big scale, which, for your trucks, where this would be the gateway device. There'd be several other smaller devices and sensors that could just plug into that. So gateway devices are probably at the more sophisticated end. So you just have to look at that. So anyways, have a look at all the different links. Sorry, one question some people had asked about the chat. We are also streaming this live on assembly.ae/live, and it is going to be on our website. So if you want to follow along later on, you can check it out there as well. Okay, so now let's get our hands dirty. If you've kind of like got about, well, we might go a little bit over the hour, but we will make sure that we cover as much. So first of all, let's talk about our experience, right? Let's see what we can do to build this. Before I do that, let me just quickly make sure that right. Okay, so experience, like I said, is the hierarchical view. And here we don't have a real use case, but we're going to have to use our imagination a bit. And we're going to create an imagined scenario where fleet management could be in there. So let's imagine our fleet. Okay, we call it the assembly fleet or whatever it is. Obviously we don't have a fleet at this moment, but let's imagine that we have a fleet of a few different types of vehicles. Okay, now the first type of vehicle that we have, simple, easy passenger vehicles. So our company has vehicles that go to different locations. So they might carry sales staff, they might carry guests, they might carry different people, but it goes from our office to a whole bunch of different locations all around Dubai. And we want to track that also. The second is our company is also into delivery. So we also have delivery trucks. So delivery trucks will be carrying, and there'll be a whole thing. So deliveries have to be made every day. These delivery trucks will be carrying that. So I've only shown one there, but obviously we have to assume we have multiple delivery trucks. Now within delivery trucks, we're also going to imagine a separate category called refrigerated trucks. So these are trucks where the temperature is important, right? So if the temperature drops below a certain level, your goods are getting spoiled, and you should instantly set up. So they have to be set at optimum levels. So refrigerated trucks are special cases of delivery trucks which have to be monitored, and we have to get that. So getting temperature from a truck is not that difficult with sensors. We just plug it into the system, and you can definitely find more about that. So these are our three categories, and the reason I've split into three categories, even for this example, is because it's going to teach us a little bit more in ThingWorx modeling, and we might not be able to cover all of it this time. But we definitely should keep it in mind that we have three different categories: passenger vehicles, delivery trucks, and refrigerated trucks. Now they're all vehicles, so they all have some common priority properties which we are interested in, right? So the diagnostic things that we're interested in, we want the location, we want so this could come through our GPS device. It would give us a specific area that, a specific place the person has been. We want to keep the history also, where it's been before, and keep logging that. Mileage, we want to keep track of, and fuel usage, usually in combination, because fuel economy depends on the car. Yeah, I mean, two cars which are exactly the same brand and, the thing might have a slightly different in practice mileage and fuel usage, and of course there's a lot of variation from different things, so we want to track that. So mileage and fuel usage might be tracked together. In this case, we're only going to track cumulative mileage and cumulative fuel usage, but obviously the ideal situation you'd want is where you're tracking day-to-day mileage, or day-to-day fuel usage, or even in real time if you can afford that. Remember, there's always a trade-off between getting real-time data and storing the data and processing. The amount of data that is flowing from devices is immense. So you have to make some, as a developer and as a designer, you have to design in such a way that you can manage that. Speed is a very important. We're going to use speed. In this case, we're going to just use speed as our sole hallmark of the driver system. So we're not going to obviously, we don't have devices for managing the the engine, or seeing how the engine, whether somebody's braking hard, or flooding the engine, or doing any of that. So we're going to use speed as our metric here for managing how we judge a driver. We're going to say that if he breaks the speed, or if he accelerates too much, that's undesirable behavior that we want to control. Now, the others, availability and status, those are more like administrative things. Availability, it just means there's a passenger vehicle out or a delivery truck out, and we can commandeer it for use. So is it available to us for that if we want to give it a new location or a new destination? Status is just something that I put in where, and this will be updated from the driver side, where they'll say, okay, I'm already en route to my location, so you can't add more passengers, for example, or you can't tell me to do more stuff. It's already en route. So that's the status. Operator is the person, the driver, so we will keep track of that. Destination is another text field. And warnings, we want to keep track of warnings, and we don't want to necessarily have people entering warning. We want to get the warnings, like if the speed has been exceeded, if something has happened, just let's log all that. So we're going to keep the word. Now, this is common to all the types of vehicles. So our fleet is going to have vehicles that are logging all of this. So we are keeping, the reason I'm marking out all the common is because we're going to be working with templates and inheritance. So we want to make sure that now let's look at and again, most of what we're discussing here will also flow over into the next session. So be prepared for that. Specific to passenger vehicles only, which are not there for delivery trucks and refrigerated trucks, we want to look at the number of passengers in the car at an active time, and we also want to know the maximum passengers. That might change for some time. One time you might have space for 5 passengers because you've got equipment also maybe in your passenger vehicle, or some seat is not working, or something is blocked off if you've got a co-driver. So we want to store that as a running value, the max passengers. And this for the passenger vehicles, we want to also add things where the administrator can control. They can dispatch to a new location. So I can say that I want to send you to a new location, and without sort of making a phone call or anything, it just directly informs them through their app that you're required to go here. And you could assign a new driver to a passenger vehicle. The passenger vehicles, we're going to assume that delivery trucks always have the same driver, but the passenger vehicles might change their driver on a day-to-day basis. So we want to be able to assign a driver to that. So we will work on that separately. Delivery trucks are pretty simple. We'll only consider them having, say, the weight of the load there. So maybe there'd be a sensor, like a pressure sensor that is maintaining, how much of the weight is there. And, that could also probably map against what's the maximum and different things. Refrigerated trucks will also have weight load, but we will also have temperature readings, like we said, and we also want warnings for temperature. So in case the temperature goes above a certain or below a certain level, or above a certain level, if you want to maintain that cold thing, which should manage that. We will also try to maintain a logged view of the temperature, so we know that in the past what's happened, so that you can be accountable to somebody who says, okay, I got my stuff, it's spoiled, and you can show your temperature gauge, say, okay, no, my temperature never received before that, so it didn't get damaged in transit. So this is our fleet. This is what you have to get into your head and imagine we're going to be working with. So we just keep this diagram and think about it coming back when we're on to that. The one thing that I'm just going to add, this is more of a developer thing. I'm just thinking about the views and the interactivity. What are the different kinds of views we want? I would like to actually make it very similar to the last example we saw, which was that Acme rentals. So we had the rental cars. We have a global map view, which shows all the cars. It could be vehicles, trucks, whatever. It shows everything. And then when you click on it, it gives you the detailed instructions regarding the individual route, like what's the history, what are the diagnostics, the speed, the mileage, all that stuff. And it should tell you, it should automatically calculate fuel economy. Like I said, fuel economy, you can calculate from mileage and fuel usage. We'll just keep a simple metric, which could just be like, mileage divided by fuel usage in gallons. And we would keep the warning history. We want to see the warning history. We just don't want to just see the last warning. We want to see that. And of course, the graph of that. So there are some values here which are logged, and we want to see the log, but there are some values that we want to also see overall things for that. Okay, so now we're going to get into the model phase, and this is where we actually start using ThingWorx. Before we do that, I just want to quickly talk to you about the ThingWorx data inheritance model. This is why I was classifying things earlier. Sorry, I'm just checking. There's a message in chat. Sure. So this is how we work with. In ThingWorx, you have two different ways of modeling. Like you create things which model your remote devices. So my car would be a thing. So each passenger vehicle is a thing. Okay, each truck is a thing. Each refrigerated truck or otherwise is a thing. So all of these individual things, we don't want to be like, managing. We're going to have many trucks. We're going to have many passenger vehicles. We don't want to be working in such a way that we have to create each thing individually. So we want to create things in a big way. So for those of you who are programmers, you would be familiar with like, concepts like abstract classes and base classes. So you can think about this like, if you're a developer who's used object-oriented programming, a thing template is like a class. Okay, and a thing shape is more like an abstract class. I'll explain what that means right now. But a thing template and shape, they're both like base classes where you can define everything within one, and then you can inherit from them to create multiple things. So supposing I get a new car into my system, I don't want to enter all the data again. I just duplicate from a thing template and I build that in. So this is a very powerful feature of ThingWorx. A few differences that you have to see. So thing shape is actually at the top of the channel. Thing shapes, thing templates can be nested. I could have thing templates that inherit from other thing templates, and I could make a whole hierarchy of thing templates before I go and actually develop the thing. So that way I could make a very complex architecture, which makes it very easy for me to create things on a thing. But a thing shape cannot derive from other thing shapes, and there can only be one thing shape in your derivation chain. Okay, so a thing template can be like a network thing and a hierarchy thing, and it's all that. A thing can only derive from one thing template, but it can derive from multiple thing shapes. So I would actually put, and this is what I was, when we discuss later on with our particular case, I would say that your refrigerated trucks, the refrigeration part would be a thing shape, because it's just behavior that's specific to one particular thing, which is like, which you can just say it's behavior. So say temperature control could be a thing shape that is inherited, but you can't inherit, you only go directly from a thing shape to a thing. A thing template, like your trucks could be a thing template, your general vehicles could be a thing template, and you could define all the functions. Your truck could derive from a general thing template, and this will make a lot more sense once we do it in practice. But just for now, you need to understand these basics so that it comes in there. Oops, sorry, just showing you a little bit more. Okay, so this is an example. Okay, and they're also using refrigerated truck. This is not our example, but it is. There are some overlaps. So you can say that like you could create a thing template called vehicle. Under the vehicle, you have two different thing templates, car and truck. So it derives from that. And the third level of thing template could be different types of cars. So you could have an electric car, an internal combustion car, and trucks could be tanker or refrigerated, right? So this is using only templates. Okay, so only using templates, you do this. Once you've created this thing, it's very easy to create things, individual things that correspond to all these different ones. A thing shape is like, say, if you use thing shape for the refrigerated unit, it's just tied to properties. So a thing shape would have operating temperature, maybe heat output, all these things. And that is just brought into. So a thing shape can be applied to different things, right? A truck could be refrigerated. A vending machine could be refrigerated. So we can reuse the thing shape to define that behavior. So let me see if I can share the link with you in, I just want to make sure. I'll share all these links a bit later on. Don't worry about it. So in case you are, Okay, I've lost track of the link, but you can definitely go to that. In developer, ThingWorx is your friend. I mean, for most of this, you can find all this information there. Have a look at the data model for ThingWorx. There are lots of guides. So see this guide, thingworx.com/en. You will have to log in for that, but it will really make it useful for you to understand the conceptual level. Okay. Okay, this, don't worry about this for now. I've put in a more detailed thing, but you will understand value stream. You'll see it more in practice. A value stream is used for storing historical value. So remember, I want to know the speed yesterday or day after. So it doesn't store that out of the box. You have to assign it to a value stream, and then a value stream can be used later. So just remember the term value stream, and we'll see more about that on that. Okay, before we get onto the build phase, let's now actually start connecting. So I'm going to stop sharing here. And now I'm going to share my other screen, which is the, where did it go? Right. Okay, so back to this. I already had it open. Now I suspect that my server might have stopped in this line. Remember, it's a real-time server. So I'm going to go back to your hosted. I'm just going to refresh this, just make sure that it is. Okay. Okay, my server is still running, thankfully. This is my link, and this is like all of you who have taken the link as opposed to installing your own server. This is what you need for that. So I'm going to post this in chat. Remember, this is only for those of you who are going to log on to my server, the 15 or so of you who were able to get accounts. So that is the server that you need to get into. I'm just going to go back to my projects. Let me just refresh this to make sure that I'm still okay. It's just asking me to log in again. That's fine. You can't use the administrator login. You will be using, if you are logging into this, you will be, of course, using the different things. So I'm just going to go back to the home. I was playing around a bit with it before the situation. So I've got a few things open. I'm just going to close that and take you back to the opening. And you can also close this. Okay, so this is the ThingWorx composer. Is anyone having properties? Okay, I see I didn't share the previous links with you guys. Okay, before I do anything, these are the links I mentioned earlier. In case you didn't see them, I've just shared them here. So you can all see my screen. Now this is ThingWorx Composer. This is everything, whether what I was talking about, the modeling, the building, connection also to some extent is all done through the ThingWorx Composer. So this is a big, powerful feature of ThingWorx, that you are doing everything in the same interface. And ThingWorx Composer is where you have. Now, normally, when you're giving people access to ThingWorx, there are lots of permissions, or most of the permissions. ThingWorx is very careful about permissions. So anything that is not explicitly given permission is denied. So, in this case, because we're in a test situation, I've given like more rights, but you still might not be able to see all the things. So for example, if you log in with one of the accounts, you're not going to see, I've got a few manage windows and I've got the monitoring. So this is actually like my, it's just more for administrators. You can see application logs, how people are connecting, all bunch of things. So everything is on there. This is only available if you are an administrator. So there are many things that people can't. So I can see actually that assembly user 01, assembly user 02R, just like playing around, they've been looking on that. So I can see everything on there. So this is only available in administrative view, but the most important thing that you want to go is back to, I'm just going to close this. Remember, we're talking about different things, right? So things are the virtual representation. So for example, if I was a car, if I wanted a car, I would have an individual thing for that. But remember, we've already talked about templates here, right? So we're going to go straight in. First of all, I'll just show you, like, if you want to create a thing, a new thing, let's say you only have one car and you don't have a fleet. Let's try that. So you just create a thing, you just give it a name, say dummy thing. Everything has to have one base thing template. So if you've not created your own template, you can just use the inbuilt generic thing template, right? So if you can use the generic thing template, it says I'm editing. So before I actually create a generic thing, right? Before, you can see there's a small to-do message over there. So ThingWorx gives you little hints like this. It says a thing template is required. So you can't save this until you create that. And you'll notice also, I'm not, everything has an autocomplete here. So I do not have to actually type out the exact thing. Almost everything in ThingWorx can be selected from a list. So I do this. Once I've done that, I can click save. And that's it. This is my, has an invalid value stream thing. Oh, but I do not want a value stream, so I don't need that. Okay, by the way, one more thing that I want you to do, this is also a best practice. I've created a project. A project is not a must, but a project helps in logically organizing your things so that, when you're working with a number of things, you can see the tabs on the top keep expanding. So new things, if I open up another thing, they will keep adding on here and I can quickly flip between different views from there. So projects, I've created a project and I'm going to use that as my project view. So I'm going to call it maybe, I think I'd called it the assembly fleet management. Yeah. So that is the project that I'm going to use on here. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my dummy thing. Let me see generic thing. Well, I think because I have that value stream thing active, so I'm going to just, no, that's always active. Okay, so it went through. So all I needed to do with there was like, I'd probably put a space in there. A thing just needs a template and then it is created on there. So now this is a virtual representation of my thing, my car maybe, or whatever's on there. Now, what you have to see is the different tabs at the top here. So the most important, the properties. So when I said speed or mileage, so I would add all of these things here. I would add properties like say speed. Speed will be a base type. Again, should use autocomplete for as much as you can. A number, and then I just add it. So just doing this, I have speed. So I have an endpoint. Once I connect to my edge device, I can keep pushing speed values onto here. Now you'll notice one more thing, and this is something that I just want you to pay attention to here. It'll be important. There are a few important settings here. The two that I want you to see are persistent and logged, right? So persistent means that even if my server restarts or if I edit the things, right now I'm working as a design user. If I edit something, whatever values I've stored in my thing will get reset unless I click persistent. So for the purpose of this, I would suggest most values you should keep persistent as there. Logged is the other interesting thing. I cannot do a logged one for this because I didn't assign a value stream. Logged means that the value, so like right now it's going to store the current speed. But when the next value comes, the next value is going to be stored and the previous value is going to be overwritten. Logged, make sure that the previous values are also logged with that. But for that, when you do that, you need to assign a value stream either to the template or to the thing. So logged is there, but I'm not going to click that now, but we will be using logged properties because we want to get the history. Okay, so when I talk about property history, I'm talking about logged values for the property. So I want to talk about the speed that I get. Values are logged in a value stream with a timestamp. So it gives me a time that the value has been put on there, right? So if I want to create graphs and all, I definitely need a value stream. Don't worry about the value stream. This is just showing you how the object, whenever there's a star here, that means that your thing has had edits and it's not been saved. Until you hit save, your thing is still going to exist in the previous state. It's a little bit slow, obviously, because we are doing that, but you have to wait for that. So other than properties, you have alerts. I'm going to show you alerts a bit later on. Don't worry about it. Services, events, subscriptions. Of these, services and subscriptions are important. If you're going to skip events for now, there's a whole permission model that, okay, you don't have to worry about it right now because I have created permissions so that all of you who are logging in can work with that. But permissions you can set, like, you can set the visibility. I can set an organization so that nobody else outside my organization can view my thing. And I can set this for collections also. So I can set it for all sorts of things. I can set it for projects. So there are many options and you can even remotely administer, but don't worry about that for now. So I'm just going to close permissions because that is a whole other beehive and you can see all that. Just while I'm on that note, a lot of the things, so I started with ThingWorx, working with it last year, and there are a few different workshops, which now ThingWorx has incorporated its own learning management system. So if you go on their site and you go to PTCU rather than demo.thingworx, they have a lot of these offerings. I think they're on Udemy as well. So a lot of you have Udemy, you can access them. So all the things I'm talking about, I'm going to be doing it in a compact version, but they do have extended ThingWorx, like training material that you can take, and you can even get certifications. So you can actually put down a ThingWorx train in this thing. And the areas they focus in are on working with the modeling, building mashups, which we're going to see later, connectivity with external edge devices like your Raspberry Pi and all that, which we're just going to simulate today. All of these are important things, and you can definitely get material from this on PTC University. There are lots of good guides on developer@thingworx.com also, but I'll leave it to you guys to take that. I'll definitely speak to you. Feel free to drop us a line on iot@theassembly.ae, and we'll send you any details you require. So if you are getting confused, do feel free to just check in with that. Now, my thing, I don't have to have ideally, I would want an edge device and I can remote bind it and it would be sending values automatically. But I've also set it in such a way that I can definitely enter the values here. So I can say I want to set a speed that the current speed is 30. And then, I can nicely edit that as many times as I like. And it is. Remember, it's not logged, so it's not storing the history, but it is persistent. Even if I went and saved the thing, if I hadn't marked persistent, that one would be reset to 0, to the default value, but it's there. Anyhow, we're not going to work with, working with individual things is a fool's errand. You want to work with templates where you can work with multiple things, and we'll work more on that. So let's get straight into it. Let's go over to, let me just get some of the details in. Okay, so let's get straight into it. We can ignore, we don't need the dummy thing, so I'm just going to delete it. You will see a ton of other stuff, by the way. So the ones that are, have this symbol, the Wi-Fi symbol, are actually connected. So there are remote processes that are working, that are sending things across there. But again, we don't have to worry about that right now. So let's have a look, first of all, at creating our first thing template. Let's think back to what we were saying previously with our diagram. We want to create a thing shape for, let's start with the thing shape for all vehicles, right? So I'm going to go to thing templates under. There are many different ways you can create. You can create, if you click plus here, the project context, by the way, is I had an old project context. I'm going to just set it here so that every item that I create will come under assembly fleet management. So I could create thing template from here, from the plus button on the left-hand side, or I can go to browse and I can select thing templates and click the plus here, right? Once I do this, this opens up a thing template. So the thing template, I'm going to call it assembly vehicle, right? This is our base, whether it's a car or a truck or a refrigerated truck, all of them will come from this template. So assembly vehicle, the base thing template here, I don't have, I'm going to use generic thing again. And remember, I talked about value stream. Okay, for the time being, let me first show you how to create a value stream. I'm just going to save this. I'm also going to create okay, I've actually already created a value stream, but I'm going to show you how you create a value stream. Oh, so I want just a regular value stream. The others are all derived versions that have been. So PTC dot, most of the things that start with PTC dot are like modifications that people have used. So you just need value stream. Okay, so I'm creating a value stream. I will call it VS underscore VS for value stream, assembly vehicle. Now, all my whatever data I'm logging will be going to this value stream, and we don't have to worry about what's under the hood. It'll all be taken care of by ThingWorx. The value stream is basically a thing that is deriving from a value stream thing template, but it's easy to just think of it as a separate thing. So once I've got this value stream, I'm going to go back to my value stream and I'm just going to add it. Okay, one very important thing I want to tell all of you is that since we're all working on the same server, we have to ensure that we don't cross over each other's things. If there's a thing names have to be unique. Okay. So if a thing name is not unique, it won't allow you to create that. So what we're going to do is, like, if you are assembly user _01, then just tag on _01 to your what's it called, the value stream, sorry, to your item. So when I go back to, instead of assembly vehicle, you should create assembly vehicle _01. You have to give it a different name. So since there are 15 of you probably working at the same time, if you're following along, you should do that. Okay, so coming back to, so I'm creating a value stream. Since I'm the administrator, I'm not using _01, but all of you should, please. Yeah. Okay, sorry. So as I was saying, assembly vehicle, now we've created a value stream. We should add the value stream here. Again, I just have to start with the first keys, and it filters automatically, and I just select VS assembly over there. Okay, so VS assembly vehicle is our value stream for our thing. Now, any thing that derives from this thing template will automatically have a value stream attached. So you don't have to bother about value stream at all after this. Okay, so we've created our thing. We've our thing template. Now we have to create properties for it. Okay, so somebody's asked, if you're working on your own servers, you don't need to worry about _01 or anything like that. You're creating your admin, you can create anything that you want on your own servers. That's in fact one of the big benefits of having your own server. So if you're working on your own server, create without anything. Okay, so first things, let's add some properties. We already talked about the properties before, so I'm going to just quickly go do this in I hope I can remember all of them. We are going to add properties one by one here. So we had destination, right? Destination was a string. I'm going to call it persistent. All the properties I'm going to create here are going to be persistent. Some of them are going to be logged. Destination, I want it to be logged because I want to get previous values. So I'm going to put destination. You don't have to click the check. You can click check in plus, then you can automatically create the next one. It lets you do that. So let's start with all the other ones. Now, position is a very important one. Now, position is a specific type. It is going to be the location type. Yeah. So location type consists of a GPS coordinate, basically. But a GPS coordinate in their thing has 3 values. There's longitude, latitude, and elevation. We're not bothered with elevation. We're going to just set elevation to 0. But it's actually like a value that we cover from there. I want it to be persistent. I want it to be logged. So that's good. What else do we have to add on? Let's add speed, right? Speed is just going to be a number. I want speed to be logged again, and I want it to be persistent. And I also want to give speed some, I'm going to say kilometers per hour. I'm going to give it the units. You don't have to worry about, the binding actually is what's important when you actually have a remote device that's connected. So a remote device will have a version of the thing on their system, and it'll just kind of mix up with this, and it'll just be syncing between the cloud and the thing. So, but we're not going to focus on that at all. So you don't have to worry about it right now. We can set a max value, but let's just leave it open-ended for that. So we've got speed. I'm going to set mileage. Okay, it's called mileage. This is probably the thing, but I'm going to actually save mileage in kilometers because that's what we're used to. Number, by the way, is the same as the floating point. So it can have numbers after the decimal. I'm going to have the units, like I said, kilometers. Again, I'm going to make mileage persistent, but I'm not going to make it logged because it's a running number. Mileage will keep increasing over time. So we don't need to worry about logging it. So I'm going to leave the logged off there. By the way, while I'm here, read only will not allow people to edit values from here, but you can always set it from the edge still. So read only makes it read only from the ThingWorx interface. So I couldn't do all the editing like I did before. So we've got that. Fuel consumption is another important one, another number. And again, I don't need to log it because it's another running number. I'll make fuel consumption in gallons. Let's do that. Okay, so what else do we have? We've got fuel consumption. Oh yeah, we wanted to do the operator. That's a string. I'm going to keep it persistent and logged. What else? Position, speed, mileage, fuel consumption. Yes, we wanted to store the warning. So I'm going to store the last warning. So warning is going to be like a string of, it's going to be like a stream of text. So every time there's a new warning, it'll keep getting updated, but all the old warnings will also be logged. So we won't lose anything. So by keeping it logged, that last warning will also be there. It'll just be a normal string type. So it's got no type. So I'm going to keep that. I'm also going to keep track of the number of warnings, which is the running thing for that. This is going to be a computed field. So you're not going to have to fill in values for this. So again, it's persistent, but not logged. And it has to, I'm going to store this as an integer type because it's a count. So we've got that. So what else do we have left? I think we need our Boolean fields, right? We're going to save 2 Boolean fields. Remember I said is available is our Boolean field that is just, it's a Boolean field. I'll give it a default value. By default, I want things to be available. So I'm going to keep the default value as true. I don't need it to be logged. So I'm just going to keep it persistent, right? Is available is a Boolean field. I'm going to add another Boolean field, which will be set by the driver to say there is en route. We're not going to use it in the first half, but you'll understand more with that. Again, here the default value should be false because by default you're not en route, and I'm going to keep it persistent. So I think that's all the properties we need, right? So I'm just going to save. If you are on the trial thing, it's good to save often because there are times I've seen that it does disconnect without that. Right now, I can't edit any of these things and it means nothing here until I create a thing with that. So I'm going to go back to I'm just going to hit plus and I'm going to create a thing, which I'm going to call assembly car 1, right? Assembly car 1, in your case, you should see 0, 1. And now instead of deriving from generic thing, I'm going to derive from my assembly vehicle, right? And once I do that, see what happens. This is where the magic comes, right? Once I do this and I go to properties and alerts, all my properties are already there. Anything that I have set. Now, if I add another property in my template, it will still come here, right? And I can edit these values. So I can go to speed and say, let's make the speed, okay, maybe not 120, let's make it 90. So we're just imagining that the speed is coming in from here. In a real world scenario, you'd probably you'd make these read only and only have them access from there. But in our scenario, we do that. So you can see what I said about position is a location type. So there's 0, 0, 0. If I remember correctly, so UAE is about 25,550. This isn't going to make any sense. 0 is the elevation. We're not going to use the elevation. So I'm just going to keep that for now, but it will make sense later on. So the operator, I'm just going to set as Nikhil, right? Mileage and all these, the rest of that we'll see there by the thing. So you can see it's already set to a bunch of different things. Okay, so our thing is automatically created, and whatever we are editing in our template, it just directly goes into there. Now, what's important to see is before we go into anything else, we're going to go to subscriptions. Now, subscriptions, again, using a programming analogy, are basically event handlers. So they are things that respond to events, and there are custom events with ThingWorx as well as that you can define. There are custom things that you can define. We won't go into that in detail. We'll use mostly the basic things. So let's create our first subscription. So for example, I'm going to say that whenever destination name changes, so if somebody edits the destination name, when we have a dashboard and somebody fills in destination name, it'll automatically feed in, it'll automatically update is available to false. So if somebody enters a destination name and it's not blank, that means we should set is available to false. That way we don't need to bother about is available being false at all. So let's do that. The first thing, and this is one thing that you want to be very important. This is a low code environment, but when you do subscriptions and services, they require a little bit of JavaScript code. So we're going to, fortunately, you also have snippets, and there's a lot of autocomplete that you can, even if you're not familiar with JavaScript, you can fill in lots of things, but I'll just show you that along there. So the first is the name. We're going to call it, let's say, just say, update is available. That's the name of our subscription, right? It's corresponding to the source. It's going to emanate from me. Me corresponds to thing, this in normal programming. So if I say me, that refers to the thing that is calling this subscription. So that would be assembly car 1, though we're editing in the template. So assembly vehicle is showing this, but assembly car 1 will also have a copy of this subscription and also will be working on that. So when I say me, it is actually the thing that is implementing, not the template. This is very important. By default, all subscriptions are disabled. Many people forget to press this, and then it always causes issues with that. So I'm just going to go ahead and check it in advance. The inputs. Now, what triggers the event? There are many predefined events here. You can see there the thing starts. You can define your own values here in event, but I'm going to use the data change event. Anytime the data in a property changes, this subscription will be triggered and it will execute action. So my property that is triggering this is going to be, sorry, what did I say it was going to be? It's going to be my destination name, right? So destination name, I want that if destination name is there. So what happens when this event is triggered? It sends this data. So I don't actually have to type this all out. I want to see, so when destination name is changed from blank to a value, that is actually stored, that's made available to me. So if I just press this arrow, it feeds this in directly. So this is the data type. So I don't need to type that out directly. You can, of course, once you get used to it, type it out. It's a lot easier. So I want to check if my event data type is equal to, remember, equal to compares it with a different value. So if event data type is a value that is blank, then if this value is true, then I want to set is available to true. And if it's not equal to a blank thing, that means there is a value present. That means is available should be set to false. Okay. So what I'm going to do is this conditional logic, I'm just going to assign it to my property. So my property is, and one great thing is I don't have to remember the name of the property. All of this is here. This is a pretty sophisticated editor. You can see it can even do linting if you've got like longer things. Needs a semicolon. It is JavaScript. Remember that. So what this does is if event data.newValue.value, which is the new value that has been assigned in the data changed event, is blank, then I'm going to compare with blank. And if it is blank, then me.isAvailable is set to true. So you are available if your destination is blank, and you're not available if your destination is set to some value. Obviously, you're not going to set this value. We're going to have it value set from our dashboard at some point, but this is just going to be doing that. So when I do this and I say done, save and continue. By the way, before I carry on, one thing that you want to keep track of here, I'm just going to show you that in detail. A lot of the time, there are lots of code snippets. Like here, it's very simple. It's one-line code, but ThingWorx provides you with a lot of control. Things that you can just directly. If you want an if-then else statement, you don't need to write it out. You can just get it filled in automatically. And even for more advanced functions and things that you're using, there's a lot of inbuilt stuff that you can use directly. If you want to fill in entities, the different properties, like I typed in me.isAvailable, but I can just like actually get it from here, if I don't want to type in the text. So that's just to keep in mind it will make it easier. Okay, so now me.available is set and I've saved the vehicle. Now I'm going to go back to my assembly car, right? And if I go to where subscriptions here, I should see, wait, okay, sometimes you need to hit refresh because it can be, if I hit refresh and I see, there it is. So it's there, it's inherited from assembly vehicle, update is available. So this is active right now. You should always check that it's enabled on the box at the side. Now, if I go back to my properties, okay, now have a look at this very carefully. I'm going to go to destination and I'm going to say this is edited from elsewhere. I'm going to call it Burj Khalifa. If I do Burj Khalifa here, have a look at my is available property. Right now it's still negative, but if I refresh here, it has changed to this. This has been set by the subscription. The subscription has evaluated that destination, another property, is not blank, so it automatically updates this. This makes it very powerful, and this is a very simple subscription. I'm going to add another subscription where I'm going to see like, okay, I'm going to actually add another subscription where I'm going to monitor. I'm going to see if somebody is, from looking at our speed, whether the speed has been, there's too much acceleration has been done. Okay, so if speed has changed at a very fast rate, I'm going to just do that using this thing. So what I'm going to do here is, again, I'm going to call it excess acceleration. Make sure to enable it. I go to my inputs. My event, again, I'm going to go to data change. So this is going to happen anytime my speed is changed from there. Yeah. So, and I'm going to set it to an event on speed. Okay. For this one, what I want to do is I want to compare the current value with the old value. So I'm going to store a variable called speed change. And I'm going to get the new value of speed and subtract the old value of speed from it. Okay. So I'm going to get the new value that is being set at the time of this event and subtract the old value from it. So that is my speed change. So that would tell me how much the acceleration. But I also want to get the time change. Okay. Now the time change comes from values like old value and new value also have a timestamp associated with it. So I'm going to get the new time minus the old time to give me my time change. Okay. Oh, don't forget semicolons. It is JavaScript. And if the speed change is greater than, say, arbitrarily, I'll say 40. So if your speed change in any time has suddenly increased more than 40, from a previous reading, no matter how much time is there, that is going to be considered. You could, of course, do it more in a substantial way. You could divide speed by time and see that your acceleration is there. But I'm going to only set a flag so that the speed change, even if it goes more than 40 for any times limit, any two particular values that I'm going to store a value, my last warning, right, is equal to, and here I'm going to just add, say, excess acceleration by, I'm going to name and shame the person. I'm going to say me.operator plus I'm going to give details of the speed change, right? So I'm going to say plus, instead of this thing, I'm just going to say plus the speed change. Actually, speed change plus kilometers per hour. And we'll also say in because we have the time. So we can directly say in time change. Now, the time change that you're going to get from here is going to come back in milliseconds in JavaScript. So you need to divide it by 1,000 to get seconds. And then I'll just say, plus seconds, right? So this gives me a new warning that says this is what's happened. And I'm also going to increase the number of warnings. Remember, we have a thing, a running count. So I'm going to increase it. So plus just increments by 1. And that's it. So that is our function. Sorry, I see people have messages. Okay, somebody is asking what's the me.operator. Me just refers to the thing that is calling this. So me is just like this. If I say me, it is actually like assembly car 1. Although I'm defining it in the template, it is actually being called from the thing that implements the template. So me actually refers to the thing. So me.operator is the operator property that comes from assembly car 1. Remember, I wrote myself as a driver. I said Nikhil is the operator of assembly car 1. So it's just a text field that we are just getting into that. Me.operator is not a custom thing, or anything that starts with the me is talking about a property. Is the time condition? Sorry, yes, it should be. I had selected, this is the problem with, so new value is what I need, and that's there. So I'm just going to save and continue. Now I go back to my assembly car 1. So I go back to assembly car one. So remember here, now I said if the speed changes by more than 40, so I'm going to go 140, right? Is my current speed. And then, of course, sometimes I need to wait for the refresh. You'll see that the last warning has been updated, and it says excess acceleration by Nikhil, 50 kilometers per hour in 746 seconds. That's 746 seconds because I've been coding in this much time. So it's been a few minutes on that. And you can see that it increases this. Again, if I go and increase it and I say 181, right? Which you're in real trouble if your speed is there. I just go back. Again, the count has been exceeded, and it says that I've exceeded by that in 30 seconds. Okay, so all these values are being logged. And remember, the subscription is a very powerful thing that we'll be using over and over again. Okay, so we've got the speed. Now, what I want to also show you is, okay, before I do anything in subscription, one thing you want to note is like, I define the subscription in vehicle, okay? But if I can override the subscription in my thing that is derived, I can go to subscriptions and I can say, I want to edit this, and replace it with a different function. And maybe I want to talk about, instead of just doing this, I want to set a different condition, right? So I can edit this. If I edit this, I will be overriding what's there. It's not, the subscription is not, by default, I can't override this, but I can define a different subscription with the same name on this. So that is an override. That'll be more important when we come to services. Don't worry about that for now. So I'm not going to be overriding anything here. I'm just going to be creating, but in a thing, you can override something in the template. So that's also similar again to the plug. Now, the other thing you want to see is we've defined properties, right? And our subscriptions so far have just been about doing data change. So every time data changes, we are doing a particular thing. Another feature that we have is we can define alerts, okay, on properties. So alerts are like specific events. So I can put a specific alert on any property. So I want to make, let's set, excess speed, right? And I'm going to tie it to the speed property. And my alert, I'm going to say above. Now, if you see, actually, there's an alert time which says deviation above. So I could have used it for acceleration already. So I could have said if the deviation went above. So instead of setting a subscription with a thing, I could create an alert here. An alert is better off because it's not executing every time the data changes. It's being managed in a separate thing there. So I'm going to say the speed is, if it's above 120, it will be. And I can set a priority. So when things compete, when alerts compete with each other, you can do that. Include limit just means that as soon as it touches 120, it will do that. If I didn't say include limit at 120, it still won't give an alert. Until I reach 121, it would do that. So I'm going to create this thing, excess speed, as an alert. And if I go back to my properties and I go, okay, one thing you have to see is right now, if I go and I specify 140, right? My alert is not going to get executed, okay? Until it comes below the limit and crosses over again, it does not show that value. So if it comes to 110 and then I go to 130, right? This should trigger my alert. Now, if you have your own server, you can see it if you go to your logs, you can see alert summaries on here. So I can see excess speed, passenger car 01, because I just went over. So because 150, the new value that I set is more than 120, it is on there. So this was a previous example. You can't see this right now because I've not saved it, so it's not showing up. So you can monitor your alerts here and see the alert history. Of course, this is only happening if you are in but I think, okay, it's not showing the latest ones yet. Anyways, don't worry about that. If you can't see the alert, right? Now that I have an alert, I can bind a subscription to my alert. I should do it in my template. I'm just going to close this, which was my previous one. I'm going to add another template called, I'm going to add another subscription called excess speed. Okay, guys, I'm also going to warn you, we are running a little bit behind. I still have, we will probably go on till about 7:30. So about 45 minutes from now, because we're going to cover a little bit. If we don't cover enough, we will always come back to this in the next session. But the next session, we're definitely going to go much faster. I want to make sure that everyone has the thing. So I'm going to call my subscription excess speed warning, because I've already called my alert excess speed, right? Now I'm going to make sure it's enabled. I'm going to go back to inputs. Now, instead of my data change, I'm going to select alert as my event. Now, alert, I have to select the property, not the specific alert. This will show up anytime an alert happens on the, now again, not just a specific. So if I define multiple alerts, all of that will come through this same subscription. And I have to, by checking the alert name, I can process in that. The document. You can actually have a look at this. This will all be on there later on. Okay, so coming back to this alert speed now, I want to set that, basically, I don't need to do much here. I'm just going to say, all the conditions have already been checked by my alert. So I'm just going to say here, just assign the last warning to, again, speed exceeded by, again, point fingers at me. Plus, I don't need the time here because there's already a time speed. So I'm going to just put I'm going to put a note of the speed in brackets, plus kilometers per hour. Okay, I think, so it does tell you, by the way, it'll tell you of a syntax error. I've obviously done something wrong. What have I missed here? Okay, by the way, I need to add the bracket after this thing. So this will just basically, and again, I just want to increase the number of warnings, right? So if I do this, save and continue, I've got my excess speed alert set, and it should automatically add the, so if I go back to assembly car 1, right? And I go back first, of course, remember, I have to reduce the speed to below the limit so that it triggers the alert. It's not going to trigger anything if you see. And now if I go to 130 and hit refresh, if I didn't hit refresh, it would automatically update. Okay, I've done something wrong because it's not showing. Oh no, it has shown speed exceeded, but it doesn't seem to be updating the number of warnings. I think I've done something wrong in my number of warnings. That's what I didn't do. So this is a good example, actually. I didn't increment the number of warnings here. So it didn't give me a syntax error for that because it's not, but it's a logical error. I just put that in there. So it doesn't alert you to that. But now if I go back, let me again do the whole process. Let's reduce by 110. And then I increase to 140. And I show refresh. And you can see my warnings have been updated, and it says Nikhil was going at 140. So we've got an alert here. So this way, the last warning is being logged. And remember, we set it as a log property. So the previous ones are also being saved on our value stream. Okay, one last thing that we will do in the model phase before we go on to here. Services are functions that are exposed by the thing. Okay, now sometimes you want custom services and custom functionality. Remember, I was talking about fuel economy. Now, fuel economy will be something you calculate from your mileage and your fuel consumption, right? So I'm going to create services are very similar in a way to subscriptions. By the way, if you want your, I'm going to call it like, first you have to give it a proper name. I'm going to say get fuel economy. If you want a thing to be able to override, you would select this. Async allows it for to be async. You don't need to worry about that. We're not going to do that. That is in a more advanced thing that you want to be putting in there. Now, in a service is just a function. So I'm just going to go directly into, first I'm going to do a check, okay. Sorry, before I do that, A function can take inputs. We don't have any inputs here coming from, but I could give it a value. I'm not going to create anything, but I do need an output. Output is what is returned by my function. So if you said value is equal to me dot full, get fuel economy, it has to be a particular return type. And I'm going to store it as a number because it's just going to be a ratio, right? So the way I code this is I just say result. And again, you can use snippets if you want. I'm just going to do me dot mileage divided by me dot fuel consumption, right? One little bit of danger here is that if, for example, me dot fuel consumption right now is set to 0, so I don't want to divide by 0 error. So what I'm going to do is if me dot autocomplete also saves a lot of, but it doesn't kick in always, is not equal to 0, then assign this, else I don't need a bracket because of else result is just equal to 0, right? So this is my fuel economy function. And I just noticed I put it in the wrong place. Sorry. I'm going to delete this and just call it again. I spelled it wrong anyhow. I should actually be doing it in my template. So let's just roll that back, that step back. Let's go back to our template. Let's go to services in templates. I'm going to call it same name, get fuel economy. Allow override. No inputs. I want an output, which is a number of my function. And I'm just going to copy and paste from what I had already done there. Okay, so that's a simple if condition. If it's a then fill result. Now, if I go back to my properties, again, I want to go back to my now, if I go back to my properties here, remember my properties are all in my inherited properties. Even my service is an inherited one. And if I go back to, okay, it's not refreshed yet. Let me just do a quick refresh. Okay, so now I've got fuel economy here. I can execute and test it out here. If I do this, I'm going to get 0 because I've not set my fuel economy value at all. So I'm going to go back to assembly car 1, and I'm going to set some dummy values for fuel consumption. Right? So let's say fuel consumption, remember it's a running value, so I'll set it to maybe 1,000. Okay, that's a bit too much. So let's set it to 100 gallons. Right? And we'll say the mileage in that much time. Again, this is not going to be practical, but let's assume that there are about 20 kilometers to each mile. So approximately that. So we'll say 2,000 kilometers. Right? Not being realistic. This is just dummy values. So in case it's not on that. Now, if I go back to my service and I execute it now, it should give me a value 20, which is 1,000 divided by that 50. So that is giving me my fuel economy score. That's a thing that we're just going to model on that. Okay, so we've done all the more boring stuff of all the modeling, and we've set everything in place. Our functions are there. As soon as data comes in, it does that. Now let's go on to the build phase. Now the build phase is where it's really interesting, and a lot of you are going to find interest in this. What we need to do, we are going to create a web program. A web program in a web interface in ThingWorx is called a mashup. And we're going to use the ThingWorx mashup builder tool. How do we do that? We have to, again, go back to plus, and we select mashup. Okay? Now, mashup's going to give us a few. So they used to have static and responsive before, but now they're shifting all to responsive layouts. The difference between a static layout is something where you define the width and the height. A responsive layout is more practical in the modern day scene, where you could have, you could be using a mobile screen, you could be using another screen. You want your web elements to expand to fit. So you want some sort of expandability. Responsive is a very common term. If you've come from a web development background, it will be very familiar to you. So responsive is pretty much the only other one. We're not going to use any templates, but you could use templates very similar to web design. You could have a header, footer, side panels. We're not going to use any templates here. So I'm just going to create that. So I'm going to call it my assembly fleet dashboard, right? And I don't have any model tags or anything. I just say save, and it creates this thing. Now, the most important tool in this assembly, in ThingWorx for me, sorry, I'm just cleaning up some tabs, which I don't need. Actually, I should open up. Anyhow, we'll come back to that. You need to switch over to design here. Okay. Now, design is your web interface. Okay. Now, when you click view mashup, it actually gives you a preview of your page. Not just a preview. If you have given the permissions right, anyone could access this page. So remember, we saw pages. Right now, our page is completely blank. There's nothing there, but it is visible here. Because you're logged in as an admin, it is showing, all the admin stuff. When somebody sees it, when you give permissions to a user, which we'll see next time, it will be nothing. But for the time being, you can see your page on here. Let's go back to our design. Okay. Now, what we need to do, I want to start off really simply. First of all, I'm going to show you all the sections. Just keep in mind this. This is our canvas. Okay, and we are going to create widgets that go into the canvas. Widgets are just things like they could be as simple as just like data values. They could be labels. They could be text that we put in, or they could be data display things like gauges, or charts or maps, Google Maps. Google Maps is not available out of the box in a ThingWorx server, but the online trial instance has Google as an extension. The extension can be taken from the marketplace and it's very easy to add, but luckily for us, the trial instance already has the extension. If you see under widgets, it gives you a list of all the different types of widgets you can put in here. So there are 87 widgets, including the Google map. Now, if you got an out-of-the-box instance, this would not be available. You would have to enable it by extension. But in the trial version, it's already there. Now, I'm going to put a very simple, I'm just going to get a gauge. A gauge is just like your meter. You would have seen it in the previous one. And I'm just going to drop it in here. Okay. My gauge is responsive, so it just fills up everything, right? So I'm just going to save this. And if I go back to refresh my page, it just shows an empty gauge. My gauge has nothing because there's no data tied to it, right? Now, how do I tie some data to it? Okay, before I do that, let me quickly go over that. So layout, this is your entire, like your widget box. And this is one of the most important stuff. We've already selected widgets from it, but it also has layout, right? So layout, I can add more containers. Okay, I'm just going to delete my gauge quickly. I can divide my existing responsive container into other containers. So I can have like a left container. I can add a bottom container. And each of these are separate canvases into which I can drop different widgets, right? Now, I can decide that this one is a static. So I can give it a fixed height and width. So I can control what's there. If it's responsive, every time the page width changes, it will automatically do different things there. Now, I have the canvas view, but I can also go to the Explorer view, and this will give me a hierarchical view. So I can select my containers. This is my main overall container. I've dumped 2 containers into it that are like arranged left to right. And within the first container, I've got container 6 and container 7. I can give these more meaningful names. You should definitely do that. But for now, we're not going to. I'm going to just actually delete containers. You can just hit the delete button and it will just do that. Another thing you want to see also, there is a history. So you can go back and forth and you can edit, in case you did something by accident, you can undo it and redo it using the history, the buttons over there. So it's quite powerful. Their interface is quite powerful there. You don't need to worry about mashups. We won't see that till later. Layout is important. You've understood that. Widgets you've understood. I'm going to take my gauge again and put it in there. If I put my gauge in a static thing, I could fix the height and width. I'm not going to bother doing that. These are the widget properties. These are very important. On the bottom left-hand side, I'm going to actually minimize this so that this expands. On the bottom left-hand side are the widget properties. So my gauge has a whole bunch of different properties that I can adjust on there. So like, for example, max value. Remember, I'm going to be setting speed to this. So I'm going to set it my max value to 300 instead of that. Until you click outside, your save does not close. So until you do save, and I go back to that, you'll see my gauge properties are automatically there. It's increased from 100 to 300 instead of 100, which is the default. And there are tons of properties. You can customize everything in there. You can change the tooltip that you see. I want to change the text. I want to show the label display, which shows the value. I'm going to say inside. I can change. I don't want a legend. I don't need a legend for this. My values are quite simple. I can change if if I wanted to, like, I could put a whole bunch of different things. Instead of it saying gauge, I could have it say different things. I could say this is I'm just going to call it a speed gauge, right? Now, the important thing that you need here is how do you get data into your thing? Now, this is where ThingWorx makes it really easy for you to get data, because you are just going to be binding and then dragging using drag and drop. You don't need to go back to your code screen and do anything. So I have to procure data from my things. So I go here, let me search for I have to search for a thing that I've created, and I'm going to filter it. I'm going to go back to, remember, I've got assembly car 1, right? I've got assembly car. Now I could call I've only defined one function, which is get fuel economy. Oh, sorry, not here. Which is get fuel economy, right? So I could select that and do stuff with that, but I don't want that. I want to get all the properties. Luckily, there is an inbuilt function called get properties, which I will just get here. You should select this execute on load so that the first time the page loads, this get properties is called. Okay. So if the properties are changing, I'll show you how to auto refresh also. We can ignore that for now. But I will get properties and I will get that here. And then get properties will show me on here. Under get properties, I can see all my different properties that I want. I want speed. Now in ThingWorx, please do monitor these arrows. This means that this property can be bound to something. And if a rightward arrow is there, like you will see here, or in the properties, that means that something can be bound to it. So you can see in the properties here, I'll just filter to just show you the data property. So the data has an arrow. So I can do this in two ways. I can either drag speed to data, or I can just drop it on here and it'll give me a choice. So it says, I want to bind it to the data. And then it shows up. So this view below is very important. It shows you what you're binding. So it says speed from your get properties, which is being called on onloaded, is bound to your speed gauge in your data. So I save that, right? I come back to my dashboard. If I refresh, and it shows me the current speed. So directly, without writing any code, I've been able to communicate my data to my thing. So this is a very simple example. You know what? I'm going to go back and I'm going to create I'm going to add another container on the left. And I'm going to add a few more things. Like, remember, we've got flag buttons also. How do you display flag buttons? You know what? Actually, that's not important. We'll go back to that later. So let's just see. We have been able to connect different things. We can even put, from here, we can put label widgets into that. So I could put text. My label widget here is got different things. And I can edit it. And I can just say my label text says, operator, for example, right? And I could add a value display type. Actually, not operator. I could probably put in, let me just get rid of this. No, sorry. I'm going to put another thing. Let's say our mileage, for example. Yeah. I'll just keep saving in between in case there's a break in the connection. Now my value, I can bind it to, I've said mileage, right? So I'm going to put mileage. I just drag it data, save, and then I'm automatically going to see two different panels. So you can see my mileage is also put in there. Now, if this is, because this is responsive, you can see that when I move it around, it resizes because it's a responsive item. So that's also important on there. Okay, so this gives us data about one thing, right? But I'm not interested in data on just one thing. So I'm going to get rid of these. Again, I'm going to delete everything. And I'm going to come back here. I'm not going to just get properties. This gets me properties only from one thing. Okay. In fact, before I do that, let's create some more things. Let's go back to our, where was our assembly? No, sorry. I want to find things. Assembly car. So let's edit assembly car again. I'm going to duplicate assembly car right now. I'm going to call, it's going to save all the properties and all the derivations, but it will not save the values. So I'm going to call it, very confusingly, I'm going to call it assembly car 2. Now let's have a look at the car 2. All the values are blank, unlike assembly car where I had set. So I'm going to just set some dummy values. But all the things, because I've defined it in the thing template, it will already be here. So I'm going to just put speed property as 100. Let's put this as 25, 55.5. So slight difference. Everything else, I'm going to give it a different name. I'll say John Doe is the operator here. Mileage, maybe let's set it to 1,000, and gallons, we'll say fuel consumption, we'll put. We said how much was those 50, right? So let's say 20. It's not a realistic value, but it'll help us see what's the difference on there. Okay, so I've quickly created another thing, and this is the beauty of using templates. I can quickly create a thing and fill in values and make it ready for things to be on that. You'll notice it already said excess acceleration because it was already 0, and then it automatically did that. So my inherited properties are back on there. So I'm going to come back to my thing. Okay, and so far we've seen this. One more thing that we want to see, and I'll add that actually at the end. If you want to have it like right now, my dashboard, by the way, if I reload now, it will disappear. If my speed value were to change in between, I would not, until I hit refresh, the value would not change. But there's this little workaround. There's a widget called, and I'll show you how to use it. Actually, I've already got this mileage here. You know what? Let me just add the value back. Where did my, oh, sorry. Okay, I'm going to actually add the value back just to demonstrate something to you because we are running short on time. There is a widget called an auto refresh widget. You can just drag and drop this. Okay, now if I go back, let me just quickly re-add my data. So I want to do it from assembly car 1. And I'll just do get properties and execute on load. Drag and drop. After I select the value, where is my mileage? And I'm just going to drop it on here. So my data is bound again. Now, if I go back, I just want to see what it looks like. I've killed the gauge. So the gauge is not going to show up. But I've got this refresh now here. Now, if I go to my value and I go and edit the property manually instead of, sorry, I should go to assembly car 1. And instead of this, I set it to, let's assume that we've gone forward an extra 40 kilometers since the time we did it. And we go back here. My value is not changing, even though it's changed. So I could either hit the reload or refresh button here, and it shows me the other thing. But if I configure my, oh, I can't see my, I'm going to just minimize this again. I'm going to configure this. In fact, I could just dump it in here. I'm going to configure it, the refresh now, so that it refreshes every, instead of, it says 30 seconds by default, but it will refresh every like 10 seconds. Okay, so now if I go back to this and I hit refresh, just wait for 10 seconds, and then you will notice it will be, it's a very subtle thing. You won't notice because we've not changed the value, but it will actually pull the thing. Oh, sorry, I forgot the most important step. Auto refresh exposes a refresh button, and we need to bind refresh to get properties. Okay. So now if I do this, and we wait 10 seconds, you saw the little flick, that is basically it pulling the value. So with, I won't have to hit reload or refresh. So this it's very easy to do this. Okay. So now let's go back to a thing. I'm just going to start again from, I'm going to get rid of the auto refresh widget. I'm going to get rid of the value. And I'm going to get rid of this thing. Now our next step is, I want to let's start using the big widgets, right? Let's start with a map. Okay. So I've created two things. First of all, let me just make sure my layout is okay. This is static. I'm going to make this responsive, but I'm going to make this static. So I've got a left panel that is responsive and a right panel that is static. Okay. And I'm going to go and take my widget. I'm going to get the Google Map widget and just dump it in here and drop it in there. Now, if I go back to save and I go back to the fleet dashboard, hit refresh, and I have my map automatically. There's no data on my map, so just showing a dummy view, but we can work on that, right? I'm also going to add a smart grid on the right. Sorry, not a smart grid, just a regular grid. You have to pick grid advanced, and I just dump it on the right. Now, another good thing about ThingWorx is when you use templates, you can get, using functions built in the template, you can get all the things that are implementing that template. In our case, there are two cars. There's assembly car 1 and assembly car 2. And we can just go and directly go and get that from here. So I'm not, instead of like going to my thing, I'm going to go to a thing template. My template is assembly vehicle. And I'm going to get a function called get. This is an implementing things with data. Again, it's going to be executed on load because I want it executed on mashup. This will get me a list of all the things that have been associated with this. Okay. Now, how do I bind this to the map? I take all data, drag and drop, just put it here, and I say it's bound to the binding target is the data for the map. Okay. Right now, it's not going to show anything, but I'm also going to bind it to the grid. Oh, I don't think it. I should drop it on. I'm going to take all data and bind it to data. So my data is bound to two things here. Now, if I go back and I just see my fleet dashboard, the map is not going to show me anything different because I bound the data, but I've not configured any fields. But you can see the grid has all the data in some format. It's not like, it's not possible properly like formatted because we've not defined anything, but we don't need to worry about that. This is just showing you how the data comes through. Now, how do I actually show the data? This is where the properties work with this. I need to define the location field for my, and the map thing is a thing of beauty because it's got a lot of different fields. I have to define that my data, the field that I'm supposed to be getting is position. And I'm just making sure that everything, by the way, you can customize a lot of things with this. I can make it a gray map. I can have a different, hybrid terrain. And, I could specify lots of different data data things on there, and the map thing is something we'll go into more detail next time. But this is just the startup. So everything else looks good. But if I go back now and I hit refresh, just with that one line of code, I've been able to get two bits of data. Remember I said 2555 is there, and then you just move by like 0.5 location base and you get the other one. Oh, right now, you see, it doesn't show a tooltip or anything. You can change the settings. There's actually a tooltip field also. So you can get your tooltip field also from, I can say, get my name tooltip, name as my tooltip field. And if I go back, by the way, notice I've removed auto refresh. I'm not going to be showing auto refresh again, but we can incorporate it into any. So now if I have my tooltip, it's not showing. Okay, did I save properly? Oh, right. Remember, I have to actually go tab out before it selects a value. So be sure to do that in your tooltip. So you can put a lot of different fields in there. I'm just checking that the tooltips are activated. Anyhow, that's not a big feature. So in there, you can see now the tooltip, it says name assembly car. So it's taking it from a data field. Now, let's go back here. Let's do something a bit more interesting now. I don't think we need to see the grid anymore. It was just on this. So I'm just going to delete it. I'm going to actually use the right side of my bar to do a bit more with that. I'm going to delete the grid. I'm going to actually add a drop-down list here, okay, which is going to contain. So I'm going to just go on here. My drop-down list, I'm again going to bind all my implementing things there. So I'm going to bind data. And under my drop-down list, I'm going to change a few settings. Okay, first of all, I want the first item selected. So if there is, and I'm not going to have this clear selection. These are just minor things. You don't have to worry. The more important field that you want to look at is the display field, which I'm going to show as my name. And I want to also go to the value field, which will show my name again. So I'm going to save this. Now, if I go back here, I think I've lost connection to the server because it seems to have gone. Okay. The other thing is, of course, we are running way behind time. I wanted to show a few more things, but it's okay. We can always slip that in for next week. We might extend our session next week as well a bit because there's a lot of material to cover, and I'll definitely revise how we finish. But this gives you an idea about how we've done that. I think we'll just end the session for now. But all of you would have registered on our session for earlier. So please do come back and make sure you register separately for this part 2. It's the same process, and we're going to come back, and next week there won't be any theory. We're going to get straight back into your developing stuff with that. So this is basically where we're going to stop now. It's almost coming up to 7:30. Let me stop sharing my screen. Okay, and thank you all for coming into our session. It will be available on YouTube. Somebody's just commented on that. I think the recording, the on-demand recording might have been a bit off, but I'm just going to check what is going on with that, and we will come back to that. So we're going to come back next week. So you've got an example so far right now, and of what it's working with. I encourage you to keep on going with this, and there are plenty more things that we can do. I'm going to write up a little bit of a thing that you can try out, a little bit of homework, and I will send it across tomorrow, or I'll post it somewhere. Maybe I'll post it on our page. But thank you all for attending, and we'll definitely catch you next week. Bye-bye.